Saturday morning in Laurel and the edge of Clay County, out carousing around some cemeteries today with my buddy Roger Denny. Roger, glad to have you, man. Tell them where you're from.
I live in Lebanon, Ohio. Made the trip down this morning to spend some time with some relatives that I'd never met before. Talked to Doug on the phone repeatedly and exchanged a lot of information, but the first time to meet the young man.
All right, man. And you got relatives in the what families?
Benge, Philpott, Martin, let's see here, a bunch of other ones here that'll come to mind in just a minute. But yeah, lots and lots of roots in this part of the country.
Yeah, and 100 years or so ago, there was a lot of infighting in your family between the Benges and the Philpotts.
Indeed.
John Paul Benge, what's up, man? John Paul's the mayor of Marydell. My kinfolks. We're at the Peters Cemetery on just off Urban Road, right on the edges of Laurel and Clay counties. One of the more interesting tombstones you'll ever see. We're going to share with you here today. The Alfred Peters Cemetery, up on top of the ridge. Beautiful, quiet place. The Daniel Boone Parkway is just over in that direction. Not 200 yards. We wanted Roger to see, when some people set aside property for a cemetery, they darn well mean it. And these are the graves right here of Martha and Alfred Peters. Alfred was so intent, Roger, on making sure that this cemetery was always a cemetery that he put the deed on his stone.
Oh, wow.
Alfred Peters, June 17, 1830, March 2, 1910. 1 acre of land on which this stands to remain the property of Alfred Peters forever.
He lived to be a ripe old age here, didn't he?
Yeah, he was determined that this would be his property forever.
Well, it's a nice little lot on the top of the knob here, so.
So Alfred was determined that this would be his forever. Of course, the legal side of that is he set aside the deed for a cemetery, right, John?
I was trying to think, is the younger Alfred Peters is buried out at Rough Creek.
I think so.
Angelique.
Yeah.
Angelique's dad.
Yeah. Angelique Smith's dad. So there is one of the more interesting stones you'll ever see, where Mr. Peters set aside this land to remain his forever.
I would imagine the number of people that have a deed written on their headstone, you could count on the fingers of one hand, don't you think?
I've never seen another one.
Yeah. This could be it, as a matter of fact.
Alfred Peters Cemetery. You can hear the parkway, how close you are to it. The roar of the cars just through the woods there. Well kept family cemetery. Well, we have found our way into Clay County. We're over here off of a road called Midnight Stables, where we actually cut through some pasture land and made our way up an overgrown lane and a road. Way off in the distance there, toward the bottom is a pond. It was on our left as we came up the hill. And following this ridge here is the Philpott Cemetery. Oh, they're shooting at us, Raj. The Philpott Cemetery, there are a number of victims in this cemetery of the Benge-Philpott feud. So if we could go back in time a little ways with our Benge blood, we might be in danger.
We may be in danger anyway. I trust he's shooting squirrels, but you never know.
Yeah, we'll hope. But anyway, the cemetery is an old cemetery. There's actually a perimeter fence all the way around it, and it probably runs from where we're standing another 75 yards in that direction, but it follows the ridge because the hill drops off here to the left and it drops off there to the right. And the cemetery was built many years ago These graves up here, Raj, would date back probably to the early 1800s, would you think?
Yeah. Now the Thomas Philpott grave,
Yep.
presumably fought in the Revolutionary War.
Okay.
I've got some documents in the car that was where his widow filed for a
Her pension.
And he was having trouble getting people to vouch for him. I mean, some people said that he was a good guy. Others indicated that he was given to ardent drink.
Ardent drink.
Ardent drink, which
Okay.
I just take that to mean strong spirit.
That wouldn't have been Mountain Dew unless it would have been apple brandy Mountain Dew.
So
where's Thomas? Thomas's grave? Did you find him here?
Yeah, he's the one that's.
He's there by the trees.
Yeah, he's wedged between the.
Where
right
was
here? I think it is.
Okay. So we'll try to get a shot. Yeah, he's. The trees are about to take him over.
Yeah.
Yep. What's that? August something, 1840.
I think it's 1848, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Thomas Philpott. I see it there. So he had to get somebody to vouch for him to get his pension. And there's some really beautiful stones up here, ornate stones that unfortunately over time they have toppled. You never know. Cattle could have once got in here and knocked these over. That's a beautiful stone right there. And my oh my, it's thick. That thing's 10 inches thick, Raj.
Yeah.
The base looks good.
I'll tell you.
That's Kate Philpott, wife of G.W. And she's been laying here since May 1st, 1920. You know, these old cemeteries. There's a Civil War boy. Sunken shield. Looks like the 3rd Kentucky Infantry.
Was there a date for his death?
No.
Okay.
There was a time when the federal government started adding dates. But early on, they inside the sunken shield, they just did the rank, the name, and the company, and infantry, cavalry, or whatever they were.
He's the 8th.
Okay. Is that 8 or 8? I think it may be 8th Kentucky. I thought maybe it said 3rd, but
It could be.
there's a lot of unmarked graves and sunken graves. It's absolutely amazing. Philpott Cemetery.
Philpott, as I mentioned, served in the Revolutionary War, and he was from South Carolina. It's quite possible, according to some of the things that I read, that he may have served for one of his relatives, an in-law, who was an officer. So I've got that information, I think, back in the car. But
That's cool, man.
an interesting little side note.
Yep. There's a lot of unmarked graves here. Field stones, not legible, but they literally run throughout this ridge. Roger, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say there's better than 100 graves up here.
I would say that's probably a safe bet, considering how many we can see and
Yep.
how many are just barely noticeable.
And then the sunken places. Here's a classic example. Right there's a grave. I mean, you can barely see that stone.
Yep.
Right there. But those are the, you're getting closer, Raj. Those are the rule up here instead of the exception. The marked graves are the exception.
There's one over here at the base of this tree.
Yeah, this would be the footstone to that headstone.
Okay, yep.
And just the sunken places are everywhere. Incredible, man. Incredible place. Philpott Cemetery over here in Clay County. Look at this stone, the size of it. The whole thing is toppled, base and all. That's mother, Vinia, and father, how would you pronounce father's name?
Ferries?
Ferris or Ferris?
Ferris, maybe?
That's probably Ferris. Wow.
1917. He didn't live to be that old.
No, he sure didn't. December of 1917. That was getting pretty close to the outbreak of the Spanish flu. So he could have been a victim of Spanish flu.
When did World War I end?
Oh my gosh, he's asked me a history question. I don't know. I can't tell you when the World War I ended. You talk about a stone, Rod. You see how thin this one was?
Oh man, that's a wafer.
That's a wafer. It's just sandstone.
You know, I think the Thomas Philpott is a sandstone as well, which for a 150-year-old headstone, or however old it is, hanging in there.
Yep, it sure is.
Better than some of the limestone headstones.
Yep. But we come across this ridge. There's a lot of trees and deadfall.
Doug, is this evidence of a grave, or is this just a?
That's hard. That's hard to say. That's almost, that sunken spot's almost. It's too sunken, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it's rounded.
Just there might be a
could have been a tree
cave under there too.
Yeah, you never know. It could have been a tree that fell once upon a time. I don't know. You would think if it's a tree, it'd still be here. It could be a sunken grave. There's another one right here by it. And some of these old stones, man, it's just incredible.
That's a whopper right there.
That's a whopper. You put that thing, pull that thing out of the ground, there's probably at least a foot or two underground. That's going to put that thing at about 6 feet long.
How far back does this fenced-in area go? Yeah, there's a little bit of legible. This is a Hibbard, it looks like.
A Hibbard.
Yeah.
I'll be darned. Well, we'll make our way back toward the vehicle. John Paul and I and Arthur Peters were here back in the summer, and we had a very bad experience. We literally got eaten up by ticks. So Roger and I have sprayed down real well, hoping for the best. John Paul decided to set this one out. He's in the truck. And I get the heebie-jeebies when I think about the ticks that we had on us that day. There you see the corner of the fence way up there.
Yeah.
Theo Philpott, 45. Martha Philpott, her death date was not added to the stone. Geez, I hope I can avoid ticks today. Estill Philpott, 1929. Death date. It's like a separate fenced-in area there, isn't it, Rod?
Yeah.
There's another military stone right here, isn't it? No, it looks too thin for military stone. No, it may be. No, it's not too thin. World War II. Charlie Hibbard. You know, that's a really pretty stone right there. And this obelisk that is tipped over, very common for its time period. You see that stone a lot. I hate to see those tipped over like that, but what are you gonna do?
Tree guy, and
Heading back down the hill after we left the Philpott Cemetery, we can give you a little bit of an idea of the road that comes in here. You just sort of have to want to come here. There is a pretty decent road. It's just grown up, so if you have a vehicle you mind scratches, you wouldn't want to do this. Raj, I think you would have had a difficult time finding this.
Oh, I would not have. I'd probably died trying, but I don't think I'd have ever, because from what I had seen on the Find a Graves, I was thinking it was more kind of over on that hill. But
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty country.
John, let me get this gate here. You've been doing all the heavy lifting.
Where we at, man?
This is the Cup Cemetery.
Now, there's another Cup Cemetery in this neck of the woods, but this one
It
isn't.
was formerly known as the Prophet Cemetery.
I guess now it's a non-profit.
Oh,
Somebody might contribute some money to it.
it's a non-profit now. That's pretty good, man. We'd make a great talk show in the morning, wouldn't we? Cup Cemetery, and this would be off of Highway 687, Little Goose, in Clay County. We got some kinfolks here. Ain't we, John?
Yep. Prophets, Benges, Hamptons. I don't know if there's Hamptons in here or not. There's Hibbers.
Well, the Cups married into the Benges too, didn't they?
Yeah.
Right here is somebody we know. Squire Benge. Squire's a brother to our great-grandfather George Washington Benge. Pretty well-kept place. There's some graves down there on the edge.
I think this may be those Smith children.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
All right, these are the Smith children. The dates on them?
Family.
Huh?
Smith family.
Okay, let's tell the story here. 1955. Leonard, 1955.
You got this one too.
1955. Vinus, 1955. So there's 5 of them, right?
There's one at the end.
Is that 4 of them?
What's the story?
Okay, tell us the story, John.
I don't know it. Supposedly, this family was killed by a cup,
Wiped out.
wiped out. And some of the kids were, I think, one or two may have been kind of mentally retarded.
Yeah.
And
So some sort of feud is going on?
well, it was just the cup guy came in the house, and I guess these kids were, the family was kind of poor, and supposedly his version of it was he was taking mercy on them.
Oh, okay. He was taking mercy on them. We've heard that story before from people like Donald Harvey.
This was the mom and dad,
That's the mom and dad.
Chris and Barbara.
Well, they lived longer.
Yeah.
They lived.
Well, she was a year longer.
Well, she probably grieved herself to death. She died a year longer, or lived a year longer. And then the dad here, Chris, lived till 1961. But these, well, you stop and look at the dates here, 29 to 55, 27 to 55, 24 to 55. This one right here was not particularly young, John. 16 to 55. This one was what? What's the math on it? 39 years old? 15, 25, 35, 45, 55, yeah.
I think this one's nickname was Teddy Boy.
Chetty boy?
Yeah, my mom used to tell me stories about him.
Well, they were all young, for sure.
I mean, how close did they live?
If you take that one right there, that one right there was 26 years old, Venice, right?
Yeah.
Help me with my math here. 29 to 55, that'd be 26, no, 30 to 55 would be 25, yeah, that's right, 31. 27, been 2 years older than Venice.
I just wonder if I can find anything in the newspapers.com about it. I kind of doubt it. But
This one was 31 years old.
What subscription did that run you a year?
remember, I just have it on my credit card.
That was 39 years old. Georgia was. So they were all members of the same family, and somebody came in and killed them all at the same time for whatever reason.
His name was Dan Cup.
That's the wife of Fred. Where'd I know Fred from, John?
Fred Benge,
that's
George's brother.
All right, so there's his wife.
I think he might have been married twice.
There's an Ida.
That was his first wife.
You know, that Ida right
that's
there
his daughter.
very likely was named after my grandma.
Yeah.
Huh. My grandma was Ida Benge Bruner. She was born around 1900.
This is Fred's. I think this is Fred's.
Fred's family?
Yeah.
Where's Fred buried?
He married again and is buried in Indiana.
Oh, okay.
But there was another brother. Sarah was a prophet, and one of the other brothers, is it Tom? George's brother Tom, maybe married a prophet, married a sister to Sarah. Olive Ridge.
Cup Cemetery.
There's one that needs the pry bar.
Along the road here, we've stopped at a cemetery known as the Old Garland Cemetery, and yes, this is a cemetery, if you can believe it. I've been here a number of times, and the only grave that I've ever noticed that's marked is this one here, and this is John Whitus, born March 20, 1834, died January 9, 1906. He was a private company F 12th Kentucky Regiment. It says right there on that stone, gone but not forgotten. I have my doubts about that. I think old John's been forgotten, as well as a bunch of others. There are, all through these woods, graves, unmarked field stones. They're all over the place. Here you go. And as you walk along, you see lots of indentations in the soil. What do you think, Raj?
Well, this is where I think it's be my great grandmother, Amanda Garland Allen. His father is buried. She actually, moved with her husband, Elihu, and their final resting place is kind of in the northwest corner of Arkansas. But, yeah, boy, I tell you, there's not much in terms of legible headstones, is there?
Yeah, I was getting ready to wonder when you're going to come in here and take care of your family cemetery, Raj.
That may be above my pay grade.
They're literally all over this place. Right here's another one right there. And did you notice, Roger, how it drops off right there? That ledge, it sort of drops off right there.
Yep.
So there are literally graves all the way down through here.
Really?
Yeah. If you start looking right way out through there, you see another one way out through there. See if I can get it on the screen. It's gonna be in about the middle of the screen right there.
Okay.
So the Old Garland is next to a cemetery. It's actually a modern cemetery right out here in the clearing, and it's called the Baker subdivision. We're in Portersburg, off of Portersburg Road in Clay County. But yeah, there's one right there. There's stones all over the place when you start looking. And I see some more right over there. It's sad to see cemeteries forgotten about. It certainly has been. For years and years. John Paul's got a theory about this. And he may be right. If you come in here and start cleaning this thing up, John,
Well, you're gonna have weed growth come back if you get rid of all the trees and stuff. So.
It'd be hard to say how many graves are here. I would estimate there's as many as 50.
50?
Yeah. I mean, the cemetery goes all the way down there to that little cut road, follows all the way up around the edge. I'd say 30 to 50.
Maybe it would be a good idea just to get rid of all these trees and just sow it in grass.
Well, that would be the thing, but would anybody mow it? What's right here is the Baker subdivision. It's out here in the clearing, and it's a modern, what did I say, subdivision? This clearing is a modern cemetery. Yeah, subsection. It's a modern cemetery.
Co-administrator on the Benge project on family tree DNA.com. You do your test. You can actually transfer your ancestry test over to there, but there's things.
Well, now we're at Kincaid at the Benge Cemetery. If we was back here, John Paul, about 100 years or so ago, what would it have been like in this country?
You could just hear the bullets whizzing past your ear.
Ping! Boing! Well, the final resting place of William Bill Benge is here, and he was a brother to our great-grandfather George, right?
Yeah.
And he was a key figure in the feud days, wasn't he?
Him and his sons.
You remember the interview that our great-grandfather gave when he was up in his 90s? Tell that story about the interview in the...
Great-grandpa George Benge, he was interviewed by a Lexington Herald Leader reporter one time, not too far from when he died, and they asked him about the feud, and he said, "I think a man should mind his own business."
Well, we're going to visit the grave of his brother. And Newt's here. Newt was killed in the feud, wasn't he?
There's some more of those mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, Newt and Charlie.
Newt and Charlie.
Bill Benge's sons.
Is this Bill right here, right?
And Bill was married to a Cup.
Ann.
She was a Cup.
Yeah, Ann Cup. You know, they've got his date of death here. He died in 74. Ann Cup Benge, his wife. He outlived her. Who'd have thunk that? There's Newt. He was killed in the feud in 1934.
Well, this Fred Benge is John's brother. That would be Bill's uncle. Fred actually lived on this property.
Okay.
And they made government-approved whiskey.
Government-approved whiskey. Now, I'll tell you a story that came from my grandmother, who would have been the niece of Bill Benge. My grandmother told the story of being a little girl over here visiting, and they got caught over here. There must have been some feuding that broke out while they were visiting. They ended up spending the night over at Bill's, and ended up having to stay there for several days. And during that stay, you know, they had to go out to the well every once in a while to get water. But the men wouldn't let the women go to the well, not with gunfire going on. But there was a rule among feudists. You never shot at the women or the children. So what happened is some of the Benge boys, when they needed water from the well, they'd put on dresses and bonnets and go to the well. How about that story, Raj?
That's outstanding. Desperate situations call for desperate measures, don't they?
Well, I doubt it, though, because he had a second. This is Bill and George's dad.
That's John.
He died in 1916. He had a second. Family, a lady named Kate Benge, and I'm assuming that was her maiden name. And some of the kids actually wound up having to live with other people based on his age, I guess.
So he had his kids by Huey.
Yeah, and then he had some by Kate.
Did Huey know about Kate?
Yeah. She was actually living with Square Benge when John was living with Kate and the other kids.
Wow.
Somebody thought that he might have been a Mormon, but that's nonsense. So.
Mormon had multiple wives. I can tell you what the story was. He was just another horny Benge.
All right.
Because guess what? They still that way to this day. Hey, John Paul, what about Charlie? He died in 36. He was a young man when he had died.
Charlie and Newt both were killed in the feud.
They were brothers.
Yeah, they were Bill's brothers. Sons.
Sons. They were the sons of Bill.
Yeah.
So Charlie here died in 1936. Newt died in 1934. Victims of the feud.
And I guess, I don't know if
Yeah, that one right there's
that's Ann Cup's dad, I guess.
Yeah, that's Ann's dad. He died in 36. That puts it.
Oh, no. That would be probably her brother. She was born in 78.
Okay. So that's Ann's brother, and he likely died in the feud.
Yeah.
In 1936. I'll tell you what, man. You know, we've covered some territory today, including our visit to the Philpott Cemetery.
Indeed.
And now to battleground of the Benge Cemetery. And we can lay claim to both sides as far as kinfolks.
You just wonder how far away blood was actually spilled.
Oh, yeah.
Probably a chip and a putt away from where we're standing right now.
I'd say you're right.
Well, old man Alex Hampton was visiting with Bill Benge in his house down there, and a bullet came through the window, killed Alex Hampton dead.
Right down here at the foot of the hill. We'll drive by it in a minute. We're coming down the road now from the Benge Cemetery, a little grassy lane that comes down, and we believe that Bill Benge's home place was right beyond that barn there where that White House sits. It's obviously not the same house, but the foundation is just ancient around that old house. It's right down there closer to the road.
I think I've got a picture of and a piece of art that somebody drawed of the house somewhere.
Well, that'd be cool to see. You need to put that on his find a grave. That's a great repository for photos. Tell you what, Clay County, somebody's giving them a nice gravel bed. And probably, I'd say Clay County, since this is a cemetery road, they probably gravelled it for him.
I was talking to Chester Benge one time, and he said that, you know, the old Bill Benge house burnt down.
Well, and it probably did.
And Chester accused the Farm Credit Service of doing it.
You know, you stop and look around. This almost looks like this concrete block right here would have been an old well.
Yeah.
But that I've always been, we may be totally wrong, but you look at those foundation stones around that house. They either old home seat used to be there, or they salvaged them. Cause that's some old stone, man.
Well, remember all the rocks that were down on the left side going down through there?
Yep. All right, we're still over here in Kincaid, and we've stopped at another cemetery. Where we at, bro?
This is the Cup Cemetery.
Another Cup Cemetery.
Has Benges, Greers, Stivers.
I really like this cemetery seat. It's such a pretty place. It has so much potential to be such a beautiful cemetery, and it is just never mowed. We have ancestors here. The Greers have ancestors here.
This is
Stivers. There's Robert Benge.
yeah.
What do you know about him?
I'm trying to think I think he's one of from Lewis Franklin.
Oh, okay.
David's son, Lewis Franklin.
Okay. Okay.
I think he might have been the one they called Pumpkin Rob.
Pumpkin Rob. But there's some really ornate stones in here, and there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them. Let's see if I can get in and zoom in a little bit here. Just show you. You know, all the way down over there toward that end of the fence.
Well, here, you want to... Well, it's not going to stay. You have to glue it somewhere.
Is that the one we stood up the last time, John?
Yeah, we put it up.
Is he? Yeah. We need some liquid nails or something.
This is his wife, Mary.
This is the, as John said, we're still out here. Portersburg Road. At some point, the maps show it turning into Kincaid Road. This is Kincaid, and this is another Cup cemetery, not to be confused with the Cup cemetery we visited earlier. You know, if we could get us a zero turn, a push mower out here, we could fix this place up real quick, John boy. I mean, it's not ours to do, but this thing could be mowed 3 times a year and be kept up. Over here's some Greers. I remember seeing these before. Robert Greer, 1943. Fieldstones. There's several old fieldstone graves. Hey, this entire section back in here, John, are mostly unmarked fieldstones.
You find the Greers?
Yes. Elizabeth and James right here. There's George Greer. Company K, 6th Regiment of the Kentucky Cavalry. Civil War. What's that date of death on there? Did you see it?
1911.
He died. Okay, yeah, that's his date of death. 1911.
Wonder where these Johnsons come from.
I don't know.
1871 to 1898.
George Stivers
Kate.
and Kate Stivers. George and Kate Stivers.
1860 to 1945, 1866 to
1931.
Let's see. Dad's grandma. My great-great-grandpa Gregory. I found something somebody posted on Ancestry on him. He was in the Civil War, and he deserted at one point, and he came back home. And based on the date of some of his kids, his firstborn, I don't know if she was pregnant when he left or if he come back home, but he went back, and they actually put him in another unit. I'd have to go back and read it, but he wound up drawing his pension at the end of it.
I'll be darned.
Okay, these hitchhikers are, yeah, they're all over.
Well, our last stop along the road today, is going to be Martin Cemetery number 1 off of Dripping Springs. If you're wondering what that box is, they've dug another grave. Martin Cemetery number 1. Dripping Springs in Clay County. This will be our final stop for the day.
How peaceful.
We got kinfolk out here.
Lots of them.
5th great grandpa right here from me and John Paul. Revolutionary War veteran David Benge, commonly called King David. It's King David Benge. Now, King David Benge, we went from him to John Jack. And we think John Jack's right here, don't we? We think that's John Jack. What makes us think that's John Jack? Because he's buried next to his daddy?
That ain't it. It's got initials on it or something. Yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
It's supposed to have JJ, JB or something.
Yeah, I see the JB.
But somebody said, I think it may have been David Westerfield, that this was the original grave marker on King David's grave.
I think I heard Arthur say that as well.
So we think that's our 5th great grandpa. That's our 4th great grandpa, we think. John Jack. And then we move over here to Smiling Dave. David Benge. Then we went from David Benge to John. And John's buried over at Benge on Kincaid, right? And then we go from John to George W. Benge, our great-grandfather. Martin Cemetery, number 1, Dripping Springs. What do you think about it, Rush?
Old Martin Cemetery.
Old Martin Cemetery.
It's, tell you what, as far as places to be permanently at rest, this ain't half bad. I mean,
It ain't
once
bad.
again, a beautiful view over the valley and
Yep,
quite peaceful.
sure is.
That's definitely a JB there.
We've had a day, bro.
Indeed we have. We've covered some miles. We've no telling how many forefathers we've stood over, and
Yeah, definitely.
you know, the historical significance of what's transpired, you know, close by to those various cemeteries is pretty significant as well.
Yep. We're glad you could come down and join us, man.
Well, I appreciate your guys' hospitality and show me around here. I didn't. Hey, once again, I wouldn't have had a snowball's chance of getting into some of those areas. I mean, that was unbelievable, and I'm glad I've got it recorded on my camera because no, you can't do it justice trying to describe
No.
what you've gone through to get to some of those spots.
And our navigator, John Paul. We do without him. Hey, we appreciate you for buying us that bologna sandwich, too, at the country
That's
store.
really well spent.
It's been one of those kind of days, folks. We caroused around the countryside and the old cemeteries, visiting ancestry, and topped it off with a bologna sandwich at a country store.
We just didn't have a moon pie, did we?
We still have a moon pie.
Or RC Cola.
It's been a good day. I appreciate you guys coming with me.
Dude, I appreciate everything that you do in terms of your endless hours of work and your out-of-pocket expenses in terms of, you know, getting the cleaning agent and just turning these places into areas that, you know, the families can take pride in and make it easier to get in and visit their forefathers.
Appreciate those kind words. John Paul's done a bang-up job out here on a lot of these stones. If you start looking around, there's...
Well, I wasn't the only one here at the time. So.
Yeah. Arthur and you and we've all kind of teamed up, but you can look at the back of these Martin stones and just see how white these things are becoming with the cleaning agent. And back over there you see the white stones and King David stone and the stone here, and way back over there John Paul worked on that one a while back, and it's just really looks so much better. Doing our little part from the Martin Cemetery, number 1, the old Martin. That's what you got. It's going to wrap up the day. Thanks for watching.